G'day there guys, Marky here, and welcome back to another episode of r/relationship advice. With that said, I want you to sit back, relax, chuck a prawn to the barbie, and let's get right into it. My husband got jealous over the girl he led on for years at our wedding. I, 25 female, got married to my husband, 24 male, and we'll call him Jim, a week ago after dating for 2.5 years. Jim has a friend called Misha, 22 female, who was invited to the wedding. He and Misha have known each other since high school and were close friends, and Misha had a very obvious crush on Jim from what he and others who know them have told me. Jim told me this after I met Misha for the first time and confessed that he leaned into her crush and led her on throughout their high school years and for a little while after, before we got together because he was struggling with his mental health and he really liked her attention. He seemed genuinely guilty about all of that because he thought Misha was a nice girl and a good friend, and because he showed guilt, I didn't feel the need to bring it up or argue about it, despite thinking that it was a shitty thing to do. Plus, Misha is a nice girl who has never overstepped boundaries and has been nothing but kind and friendly towards me, and I now consider her a friend too. Misha moved away to the city last year and has done really well for herself, and has a long-term boyfriend who none of us has met yet, so when it came to sending wedding invites, I told her that she was welcome to bring him as her +1. The first red flag came when Jim was weirdly hesitant to the idea of Misha bringing her boyfriend, but he excused it on being concerned about the number of guests we invited, and then the matter was dropped. When the wedding day came, Misha showed up in this beautiful dress. Nothing inappropriate for a wedding, and with her boyfriend on her arm, who I'll admit is a very handsome guy. Think a Kit Harington type. She's also lost weight and has a haircut that suits her better, and I thought she looked great. We also found out throughout the night that her boyfriend is very successful and earns more than practically anyone else who attended. Throughout the reception, I noticed Jim glaring at Misha and her boyfriend the whole time, and he was really cold and short towards her when she came over to congratulate us and give us a gift. He was also straight up kind of rude to her boyfriend when Misha introduced us to him. When his mom, who's always known and liked Misha, mentioned that she was glad Misha found a great guy and praised her boyfriend for being so nice, Jim snapped that at least she won't be desperate and hung up on me for the rest of her life. Which I thought was cruel and uncalled for, but I didn't challenge him because I didn't want to argue at my wedding, despite the fact that he frankly sounded bitter. The whole thing has left an awful taste in my mouth, and I can't help but think that Jim got jealous that Misha found a guy who's honestly quite a catch, who she's clearly very in love with, and is now completely over Jim. In the comments, I think I would have to take a step back from hubby and see if there were any other red flags I've missed. He was jealous of this woman and her boyfriend on your wedding day. I cannot imagine how much this hurt you. I am so sorry. How he admitted to treating that girl was the red flag, and OP entirely overlooked it basically. He was okay using someone to meet his own needs and feed his ego for years. How exactly did OP think that makes for good husband material? But that's the other problem. Way too young in my opinion to be getting married anyway. Dude. Right? Years he spent stringing her along. I am so proud of Misha for her perceived happiness, and I hope it is genuine. If your husband couldn't enjoy his wedding day, I fear for your future. His only reason to snap is jealousy, but you should be his world. Yes, your husband had a weird reaction and probably is unhappy that someone he slighted and thought not good enough to date him is now doing better than him. But please don't listen to random Redditors crying divorce and annulment because they don't know what they're talking about. Please let your husband know how it made you feel and show him where he was wrong. OP needs to get a divorce now before things get even more out of hand with unexpected craziness. It's giving bitter. Can't imagine how that must have been for you. Says a lot about his character, to be honest. OP replies, it felt a lot like watching a kid get upset at another kid for playing with a toy they personally never wanted to play with in the first place, if that makes any sense. He probably wants to play with it now that the toy looks better, happy, and is desired by someone that apparently puts him to shame. I'm sorry, OP, but that's a terrible way to remember your wedding. He was marrying you while getting jealous and thinking about another woman, all grumpy and mean at the wedding instead of being happy and celebrating with you. Back up to the post, we have a half update. After getting some PMs from people, I decided to go through his phone while he was napping after work, and, needless to say, this marriage is over. I'll post a real update when I have sorted out everything. And now, on to the update. Hey everyone, I'm posting this here because I said in my last post that I would update when I was able to. Pretty much the day after my original post, I got some PMs suggesting that I go through my husband Jim's phone to see if he and Misha truly were just friends before this, and that nothing romantic happened between them that would explain his reaction at the wedding. He always takes a 45-minute nap after work, and so I used that as an opportunity to swipe his phone from where it was charging on his desk so that I could look through it. I've also seen him put in his passcode a ton of times, so that wasn't an issue. I didn't find anything in his texts with her, but I know that Jim goes on Instagram a lot, so I checked there too. The immediate red flag was that he'd used an app lock that required a passcode to access Instagram, but the idiot used the same passcode that he uses to unlock his phone, so I got into that right away. It's his birth year. Go figure. And what would you know? I got to his messages with Misha and find messages from him the morning after our wedding telling her how beautiful she'd looked that night, how much he'd missed her, how he felt that her boyfriend being there spoiled his opportunity to catch up with her, and that he was desperate to meet up with her. Misha never replied to these messages, and he sent some more to her later that day. I won't get into what he said because there were very personal insults that were frankly just gross, but just think about the kind of stuff you would read on that nice guys subreddit. Misha left him on red, and when I clicked on her account, it appears that she's blocked him. I scrolled through their messages quite far back, and I believe nothing romantic has happened between them. I wish that was all, but looking into his other conversations on Instagram, I found out that he's been messaging other girls on there too. They seemed like aspiring Instagram model types from our area. Most of these conversations were just him shooting his shot and getting left on red, but others had evolved into flirting and 2 of them resulted in sexting. And the most embarrassing part of them all? The nudes he was sending to these women weren't even of him. I know what his body looks like, and he doesn't have chiseled abs and isn't that well endowed. I think he must have found a man's profile on some adult website and used those pictures, just cropping the face out. These 2 conversations happened in the past 6 months. I ended up texting his mother and his brother from my phone, asking them to come and pick him up from the apartment, and then I went to wake him up. I told him that I knew about the girls he was messaging on Instagram, that he needed to pack a bag and get the hell out before I started throwing his stuff out on the street and causing a scene. He started crying and begging me not to kick him out and swore that they were just messages and that he would never actually cheat on me. But I don't believe him for a second. Then he had the nerve to tell me that he didn't want me to tell anyone else about what he'd done, but I had left the room and started ignoring him by that point. He left with his mum and brother and is staying there from what I know. I've blocked him on everything for the time being until I'm ready to tell him that I'm seeking annulment. Thankfully, where I'm from, you can get one almost no questions asked as long as you haven't been married for longer than 30 days, and I've already looked into the process. I haven't really left my apartment at all this week, and I've been calling in sick at work because I don't feel like I can face people. I'm just so embarrassed that I've wasted over 2 years on this man and that I married him in the first place. I don't feel like I can even talk to people about this. So posting here has helped, and I'd like to thank you all for your kind words, advice, and support. I might reach out to Misha when the dust has settled, but I think I'll need to build up some courage for that. In the comments, oh god, OP, a million sorries for what you're going through. You should be happy and in the honeymoon phase right now instead of this crap. This is a sucky consolation, but at least you found out now before you had years and children in a marriage with him. Yikes, this is so much cringier than cheating. He's a massive loser. I'm glad you're getting away from him. How to ruin your life because you can't hide the fact that you're lasting after another woman at your actual wedding. I wonder if he was lusting or if it was just an ego thing. I've known people in that situation who string someone along who has a crush on them. They like the ego boost, and when that person moves on, it stings them. Ego thing for sure. I had an ex like this myself, and boy, are they ugly on the inside, and sometimes on the outside when the rose-colored glasses come off. It's cathartic watching them implode a little when they learn that you have self-esteem now. The only real bright side in this story is she didn't waste any more of her life on this lying loser, and she realized what was up immediately after the wedding. Yes, plus she was nice with Misha at the wedding, and didn't blame others for her guy's horrible problem. A lot of people would have felt insecure and lashed out at Misha instead of the guy. She was smart enough to put the blame on the person who deserved it, and was able to get away right away instead of wasting years on this guy. So many people try to blame the person their partner cheated with, or in this case, tried to cheat with, and got shot down. Then, they stay with the cheater and keep blaming other people as if that will salvage the relationship. Far better to focus your upset feelings on the jackass who caused them and to get them out of your life and move on. Our next post is titled, I, 30 male, rejected one of my best friends, 28 female, that I used to be in love with. I met my friend Jean 3 years ago at a rec soccer league, and I was pretty infatuated with her from the beginning. Another guy in the league, lawyer dude, LD, also liked her, and part of the same group of friends we got together at this league. After over a year, our friendships deepened, and I honestly fell more in love with her too. I was hesitant about damaging our friendship, but came clean and asked if she wanted to explore something more. She told me that she loved me as a friend, but not into me like that, since she didn't want to get into a relationship at the time. So even though my heart was broken, I moved on. Less than 2 months later, she started dating LD, and it became clear to me she wasn't necessarily avoiding relationships, but she just didn't want me, lol. I think all my romantic feelings for her ended right at that moment, since I'm the type of person that wants the same excitement and feelings for a partner that I give to her. No big deal, was honestly happy for her. We were still good friends, but I left the league because my professional life picked up since I was promoted to CFO for my company, and I just didn't have the time for it. We still joked and texted all the time, and Jean and LD even came out with me, my friends, and sister to a party, and some nights out. Jean even became good friends with my sister, which I was happy to see, because I'm happy to see my sister surround herself with great people. A few months ago, Jean and LD broke up, which came as a surprise to everyone because they seemed great together. I'm finding out in the past several weeks from Jean and my sister that LD was abusive and has been emotionally, psychologically, and even physically abusing. Physical abuse picked up in the last few months of their relationship, almost the entire time they were together. She even had pictures of the bruises on her body and everything. I feel terrible for her, and she's been spending more time with us, and I think she's well on the path to recovery. She should probably see a therapist or something to confirm that. Last weekend, we were drinking some wine in my kitchen and goofing around. She's teasing me about the last few girlfriends I've showed, and even doing an impression of some. We're in New York City, and dating in people can just be weird here, lol. I was pretty tipsy, and my kitchen is tiny. It's a Manhattan apartment, and I'm pretty sure that she initiated a kiss. We kiss for maybe 7 to 10 seconds before I put a stop to it and try to defuse the situation, joking about how strong the wine is. She agrees, laughs about it, and goes home. Early the next morning, she's at my doorstep and wants to talk. She said she's in love with me and we can start what we should have started when I confessed to her years ago. I told her I love her as a friend, but I don't see her romantically like that, and it wouldn't be a good idea. She seemed incredibly hurt and asked if it's because I rejected her, and I told her it wasn't, but I don't think she believed me. To be honest, it probably is the reason. As I mentioned earlier, unless someone is as Golden Lab excited about me as I'm into them, I lose interest in them romantically. I probably have issues, but that's just how I am. But in no way am I trying to purposely punish her. Now even my sister is texting me and giving me a hard time because she sees it as her friend who was manipulated into a relationship when she wasn't ready for it by a narcissist and then abused. She's accusing me of being vengeful and petty with someone who is my soulmate because she got manipulated into a relationship and chose someone else over me. My sister has also dated some assholes in the past, so I think she's just seeing it from Jean's perspective, which I don't fault her for. I reached out to Jean to see if she's okay, but she said she needs time, and it's possible we should never see each other again. I think this is super hypocritical since I continued to be a good friend when she rejected me. I don't know what to do here. I truly do love her platonically. Should I try to explore if there's romantic potential here? I'm about to lose a friend and also ruin my close relationship with my sister. In the comments, if you don't feel for her, you don't feel for her. You need to confront your sister with her bullcrap. Simply advise her that you can't help that you have moved on and you are no longer romantically interested in her. Tell her that you are disturbed by the fact that she's talking about Jean being your soulmate when she's just another friend you both have in your life. Yeah, you may have had interest in the past, but that was in the past. You've grown as a person and have had experiences with Jean which have changed how you viewed her as a person. You still care for her, but you can't view her more than a friend now. It's very weird to feel pressured and coerced into a relationship just because someone else feels you're a perfect match and completely disregarding your feelings. That's not healthy and sets a precedence for how any sort of relationship with Jean may go, with your feelings being ignored. Advise her while you understand that Jean is her friend and she wants what's best for her. She cannot possibly think that it's okay to dictate who you involve yourself with romantically or who you choose not to. It's none of her business, and also makes you feel as if she doesn't have your best interests in mind because you told her how you feel and she's not listening, and instead trying to sell you her dream. If you don't feel something, you don't feel something. You don't owe her anything. When she had you and someone else on the table, she chose someone else. No issue with that. Can't help how you feel. But then you moved on, and you can't help how you feel. It's never all right to be coerced into a relationship. Don't let that sort of behavior slide because then they may take other liberties. If you end up feeling something in the future, cool, but let it be on your terms. And if Jean cares enough, she'll wait to give you the space. She can choose to move on if she likes, but no one can live your life for you, especially not your sister who has shown signs of obvious bias and lack of actual care for your best interests. Try to let Jean down gently, but firmly again. Ask her to please respect your decision as you respected hers and not involve your family. Offer space or a break from the friendship if needed, but make your decision clear in no uncertain words. Set boundaries, and hopefully you can move on with your friendship with Jean and relationship with your sister on a healthier road. OP replies, "Yes, I need to sit down and have a chat with my sister first and foremost. We're going out to grab a meal today, so we'll have an opportunity to hash it over and let her know she should step back for the time being. She's always been a great little sister, but has a tendency to go a little crazy if she thinks she's doing something for my well-being. I'm giving Jean space for the time being to find her bearings. I might text her later to see if she's doing okay, but I think physical distance is good." Nah man, I would leave Jean alone for a while. Jean is seriously lacking some common sense right now. It's been years. Did she really think you'd just wait around for her? I know you were jokingly comparing yourself to a dog, but it's like she really thinks that way too. She can say, "Come here, boy," and that you have to obey. And to make it worse, she thinks you were saying no as revenge? You've been a good friend and that's what she thinks of you? Remove yourself from the situation as best as you can and be honest. You don't need to give her or your sister any reason other than, "I'm just not into her like that." Done. She's in a bad headspace because of her ex, but that girl needs to be single for a while. You don't owe anyone an apology or a damn date. And now, on to the update. I had some people messaging me asking for an update that I've mostly ignored, but I wanted to provide an update today. I had brunch with my sister the day after the first thread went up. I actually showed her the thread, and she spent half of our meal reading through it. She actually agreed that it's not her place to butt in, and apologized about making this situation more difficult for me. She said she's going to be on my side, and I can count on her going forward. She's also actually agreed with a lot of the posts that I should probably take a clean break, or at least some very serious distance between Jean and myself. So that's what I've been doing, until last night. Went to a party in Brooklyn last night for a friend's birthday, and took an Uber back home to Lower Manhattan. Around midnight, my front desk calls asking if they should let a Jean up. I'm confused, and I say yes. She comes up and she's looking much happier and healthier than I've seen her in months. She hugs me and said she misses me and if we can just talk and hang out. She said she saw me in the party earlier that night on Instagram, and our mutual friend that was there said that I left early, so she came over. I've been drinking, so I guess it's less awkward, so we just start talking like old times about what we've been up to the last week and everything crazy that's going on in the world over some beers. We're in my god-forsaken tiny kitchen again, and she kisses me. I don't stop her this time, and she ended up spending the night. Waking up this morning, I didn't and still don't know what to think. Left while she was still sleeping to pick up some coffee. When I'm back, I hear the shower, so I sit on the bed and wait for her with the coffee. When she got out, she realized that I wanted to talk about last night, so she asked if she could talk first. She said she knows I'm confused, knows how it feels like I'm her backup, knows how it feels like I'm the rebound. But none of that is true, and she loves me and wants to do whatever necessary to prove and make it work. I told her that I'm feeling confused about the situation, and I don't feel the same type of love for her that she thinks she feels for me. She started crying and asking if she can do anything to prove it to me, so I told her that I think it's best if we take some time apart to do our own thing and let all these high emotions settle down. And if necessary, we can pick up this discussion with a cooler heads and maybe even become friends again. She cried some more and agreed. Left a few hours ago, and I'm still feeling kinda shell-shocked over the whole thing and have been just pacing around my apartment. I think I made the right decision about taking a clean break for now. Anyways, I appreciate all the great advice last time, so thank you guys. In the comments, just my 2 cents when someone says they aren't interested, my brain usually just shuts them off as an option. It's fairly natural for me. I think it's a very healthy way to be. You did this and did everything right to stay a good friend and not some asshole nice guy stuck in the friend zone. I both commend you on that and think that it gives you a perfect tool to explain it to her. Since you once had to shut all your feelings off and reshape how you saw her. Asking the exact same thing of her now is both fair and intelligent. It is now her job to not be a creeper and to simply be glad to have you as a friend. Now on a side note, if you both do know the other is an option and as real friends redevelop those feelings later, then that's awesome. Falling in love with a great friend is almost always amazing. However, it can't ever be one-sided at the start or it will always stay that way. So asking her to back off of that and prove that she can still be a good friend with the roles reversed is the only logical path that she should have to what she may potentially want. Well done. When I read that you slept together, my heart sank for you because so many people would just start their relationship from that point, and you did exactly the right thing by putting some distance between you. I find it a little sinister that she came to your house knowing that you had been drinking and initiated something that you already told her sober you didn't really want. If I were you, I would feel tricked and a bit used. As someone else has suggested, if the genders were reversed, this would likely be classified as coercive assault. While she may be doing better now, her initial "I see you as a friend" is likely the truth, and she is still looking for safety after an abusive relationship. And now, onto the final update. I had some time, and a lot has happened unfortunately, so I figured I'd provide an update since you guys provided some good advice that I didn't recognize as such last time. I went straight no contact after Jean went home after our night together. Only contact we had was via text when she asked 2 days later if she could come over so we could talk, and I told her that I didn't think that was a good idea, and I thought that it was best we spent some time apart for the foreseeable future. Got a few more texts saying she understood, then how good we'd be together, and then finally how I'm making a mistake. I ignored all of it until it stopped a week into it. At this point, I sadly accepted the reality that we probably could never be friends and was fine with it. We both moved on and hopefully find happiness somewhere else. I mentioned before that I'm the CFO for my company. For the last year, we've been finalizing closing a deal with another major company, and obviously because of all these global macro events, it's made things a lot more complicated. I have incredibly strong feelings for the legal counsel, LC, for this company that I've been working with. She's drop-dead gorgeous, smart as a whip, and an insanely tough and strong-willed woman. I tried once, several months ago, to ask her out, but she saw my attempt from a mile away and rightfully let me know that it was hugely inappropriate for us to start a relationship because of the deal that we were working with. I agreed, and although I've dated plenty the last year, I've been pining after her this entire time. 2 weeks ago, the deal was officially finalized. I'm not kidding when I say this. Literally less than 60 seconds after the deal was announced, I asked her out, and thank goodness she accepted. The date was incredible. She told me how difficult it's been the last several months working so closely with me when we had such strong feelings for each other. Just like how so many of my friends know about her, she's also told her friends about me. Spent the entire evening talking about how excited we finally are, and then she came home with me. Now, I have no idea how, but Jean found out. She messaged her 2 days later on LinkedIn asking to talk. Elsie thought Jean was an annoying recruiter or saleswoman at first, and then Jean mentioned she knows about us seeing each other. Jean told Elsie that she and I were in a complicated and bumpy phase in our relationship. When Elsie didn't respond, Jean mentioned how I manipulate and use women. How I am a serial dater and only chase women, and if a girl has feelings, I hurt them instead. Elsie was freaked out about this. The next day she asked me for coffee and showed me all of this. Said that she likes me but doesn't really want to get involved in any drama and maybe we shouldn't see each other. I had to beg her to give me a chance. I told her our entire history, and thank God I actually wrote it down in the previous posts, so I showed those to her too. She agreed to give us a chance, but I can see she's shaken up with all of this. I am infuriated. I honestly don't know what to do. I've never been a vengeful and hurtful person, but I'm really tempted to call Jean and say some incredibly hurtful things to her. Elsie and I have blocked her in all mediums of communication. I made my sister do the same, who is also freaked out by how Jean is behaving. This is probably and hopefully the final update. I'm kind of upset that so many of you told me how manipulative and potentially dangerous Jean was, and I completely ignored it. I've learned my lesson now though, and will act accordingly if I have to interact with Jean again. I honestly think going through an abusive relationship taught her some incredibly toxic things. I am angry with her, but I know in my heart that she wasn't always like this. I urge anyone, if they're able to donate to the National Domestic Violence Hotline, which Elsie and I did. Non-profit organization and donations are tax-deductible to the full extent of the law. In the comments, while this lull feels good and is no doubt deserved, Jean contacting a total stranger to completely assassinate your character to her is severely dangerous behavior that needs to be burnt down to its roots. Seek legal advice on how this can be dealt with decisively and within your country's legal framework. It is unfortunate that, while Jean no doubt has some genuine moments of kindness in her, she had always held the understanding that you were pining and strung along by her from the very first rejection of you, and when she was finally ready to fall back on you, she could not fathom that she was in fact not the center of your universe. That is why her outrage and entitlement is so personal to her and runs so deep. How has your sister been recently, by the way? She was totally complicit in enabling Jean's delusions early on. Has she genuinely come around now, or does she still show signs that she might be undercover and helping Jean with her agenda? I ask this because in both this and the previous update, Jean totally knew personal and private information about you without it being public. Clearly, she is getting these leads from somewhere or someone. OP replies, I'm not worried about my little sister. She's told me that she's not talking to Jean, and I believe her. I haven't really told our entire social circle what's been going on, so there might be a few who aren't aware of what's going on that learned these details from Jean. I will definitely keep details of my life more private now. Also deactivated nearly all of my social media, with the exception of LinkedIn. Holy crap, this is the classic mentality of, if I can't have something, no one else can have it either. Jean is trying to destroy all of OP's relationships so that his only option is her, and I don't think she's realized that she has become the abuser. Psychological and emotional abuse are extremely easy to find yourself perpetuating the cycle of, especially in comparison to the build-up that physical abuse takes. I guarantee that she knew that OP was interested when she got together with her ex and genuinely thought that she would always be able to fall back on him if things fell apart. Then it turns out that her back burner was turned off and emptied out from lack of care. She then realized that OP was interested in someone else, and the realization of not having that fallback plan kicked in. I'm not excusing what she did, because even realizing that your plans fall apart doesn't excuse lying about someone else and then trying to ruin their personal and professional relationships. Yeah, abuse is very much a cycle. Completely one of those things where if you stare into the abyss, it will stare back into you. And that's where I'm going to end today's episode, guys. I do hope you enjoyed. If you did, let me know what you thought about it down below, and I'll see you in the next episode. Bye.